Hey everybody, what's going on? Maxx here. Got another Master Duel video for you all. So, we're coming back to the best deck of the current format, and that's going to be Tearlaments. We're covering that for a Season 20 deck profile. So, what has changed since the last time we played Tearlaments? Well, I don't think I've actually covered a pure Tearlament deck on the channel yet that actually plays the Fusion Grapha. I know when the Dark World stuff first came out, we did like a hybrid Dark World Tearlaments build, but this time around we are playing the Grapha still, just without any of the Dark World main deck monsters. As a result, the King of the Swamp has become a pretty good addition to the deck. However, I am not playing the limited King of the Swamp. I'm playing the Beast King of the Swamp. Now you might be thinking, well, Hex, why are you playing this one and not the one that's limited? I mean, the one that's limited has got to be better, right? And it is for certain reasons. If you're actually looking to main deck Polymerization to search off of the King of the Swamp, then yes, the level 3 version, which for those who are unfamiliar of the difference I am referring to, of course that is too generic of a search. There we go, and throw in a couple more keywords. There we go. I'm referring to this card. So this is the one we're not playing. We're not playing this one. Instead, we were playing the Beast King of the Swamp. And the reason is a lot more simple than it may seem. I'm literally just playing this because it's level 4. That's it. That's the only reason. I'm not playing this one specifically because, again, I'm not playing Polymerization in my main deck. So, with that being said, this card ends up being pretty much functionally the same as the regular King of the Swamp, or I guess the King of the Swamp is actually the second one. Beast King is the first one. But anyway, yeah, there ends up being no difference between the two. They can both be used as fusion substitute materials. They're both water aqua monsters. It's just the Beast King is level 4, so it can actually be used to make a rank 4 in a tight spot. So that's literally why I'm playing it over the regular King of the Swamp there. Another piece of tech that I am trying out that I have not played in quite some time is Diviner of the Herald. I'm actually rocking a single copy of that in this build in order to make the Baronne here. Basically, I really wanted to particularly try these two cards out and just see how I liked them in Tearlaments. I don't know if necessarily this is an optimal build, but again, I was looking to try out a couple of pieces of tech that I haven't yet, and so decided to throw them both in to this current iteration, and I gotta say, they didn't work out too badly. I don't know if the Diviner, I actually ever got a chance to like summon a Herald, or I mean not as a Herald, but a Baronne, but all the same, the ability to send a fairy from deck to graveyard is very good. Another actually fusion substitute material that you could consider is Goddess with the Third Eye. It's functionally the same thing as Beast King of the Swamp, except instead of being a dark aqua, it's a light fairy. And this can be important to send with Diviner, having the option to send the fusion substitute monster. I ultimately settled on the Beast King because I thought that being an aqua to be able to fuse for something like Kitkallos was a little bit better than being a fairy to send off a Diviner. If I was playing like another copy of Diviner, then I would more heavily consider Goddess of the Third Eye, but only playing a single copy, I'm just going to go ahead and stick with the Beast King of the Swamp. I also want to make sure that I point out too that I don't think playing Polymerization with regular King of the Swamp is necessarily a bad thing. I think it can actually be quite good because, of course, Polymerization not only fuses you into a tier or other fusion monster, but will also proc your fusers because they're getting sent to the graveyard by a card effect there. I just didn't have space in this current build that I was testing here, but I could definitely see a world where playing that ends up being optimal. I could have kept potentially like the 2 triple tactics talent, but I actually really like this card, not just even in this meta, but in general, and most of the reason it hasn't been making a lot of my decks lately is that there's just barely not enough room for it, right? Triple tack ends up being, the way I build decks sometimes is sometimes I'll start not right when I get to 40 cards, but I'll build over and go to like 45 to 50, and then trim it down to 40 from there by taking out the cards that I think are least important. And triple tack is very often like within the range of 45 cards in a lot of decks. Like it's so close to making it into a lot of builds, but I usually just don't have enough room for it. But I really like it. I really like having access to it, especially in a deck like Tearlaments that's got so many moving pieces and so much is going on. Literally all 3 of these effects can be very useful, so being able to have access to any of them is very nice there. Still rocking a playset of Super Poly. I do think that this is ideal in current Tearlaments. This card is great. It's not only a good board breaker, but it's also a good piece of disruption. So it's good going first or second. I do like having Rhoda, or at least some kind of way to make Reinoheart at least a little bit more consistent. We're not playing the Foolish Burial Goods, even though that tends to see a little bit more play than Rhoda, because we really just don't have too many excellent targets for it, right? Like, we have the one of Sulliek, but other than that, you know, it's like, am I going to send like the Scream to add one of my 2 of trap cards? Sending Heartbeat to add a trap card that's in the graveyard is pretty niche, so sending Cryme to add back a Banished Tearlament. So I ultimately just decided to not include Foolish Burial Goods. If I had like one more solid target for it, like if I decided to play the Crystal Beast Field spell, then obviously it would be a lot more warranted, but I've never been a fan of that package. I'm still not a fan of it, honestly, now. Okay, so I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to cover with this particular iteration. Let's go ahead and break it down card by card and look at some gameplay. We're on 3 Maxx, 1 Diviner of the Herald, 2 Tearlaments Merrli, 3 Ash Blossom of Joyous Spring, 2 Tearlaments Havnis, 1 Beast King of the Swamps, 1 Fairy Tale Snow, 2 Tearlaments Scheiren, 3 Tearlaments Reinoheart, 1 Keldo the Sacred Protector, 1 Mudora the Sword Oracle, 2 Kelbek the Ancient Vanguard, 1 Agido the Ancient Sentinel, 1 Bystial Magnamhut, 1 Bystial Druiswarm, and 1 Bystial Baldrake, 1 Foolish Burial, 1 Reinforcement of the Army, 2 Triple Tactics Talent, 1 Primeval Planet's Perlerino, 3 Tearlaments Scream, 3 Super Polymerization, 1 Tearlaments Heartbeat, 1 Tearlaments Cryme, and then finally 1 Tearlaments Sulliek. There is our main deck. For the extra deck, we're on 1 Mudragon of the Swamp, 1 Tearlaments Kitkallos, 1 Garura, Wings of Restorant Life, 1 Predaplant Dragostapelia, 1 Tearlaments Rulkallos, 1 Tearlaments Kaliedo-Heart, 1 Grapha, Dragon Overlord of the Dark World, 1 Baronne de Fleur, 1 Abyss Dweller, 1 Time Thief Verdure, 1 Divine Arsenal, AA-ZEUS, Sky Thunder, 1 Dark the Dark Charmer Gloomy, 1 Sprite Elf, 1 Sprite Sprend, and then 1 Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. There is our list. Let's look at some games. Okay, so our first opponent here is going to be on Naturia at Emancipator. I do specify the Naturias because they are playing pretty heavily into it, going so far as to even play like Bamboo Shoot and stuff like that. Of course, they're playing a Vader Self package as well. So we're going to be taking the first turn here, and funnily enough, end up opening with... funnily enough, in playing this session, I opened this exact 5-card hand like literally 3 or 4 times within like a dozen game span. It was kind of insane. Opening both of the new pieces of tech that I was so eager to try, as well as Rhoda, along with, of course, the Reinoheart. Still going to use the Rhoda, see if I can bait out like an Ash Blossom or something before normal summoning Reinoheart. Going to send off the Havnis and activate the effect. Thankfully, it does resolve. If it hadn't resolved, well, we could still set Sulliek here, and that actually wouldn't be too bad. So I'm going to fuse with the Reinoheart in my hand because I don't really have a use for it. Usually, even if I have like another tier monster in hand, I still like to fuse with the Reinoheart on field to make the first Kitkallos. But if the other tier monster in hand is just another Reinoheart that, again, I'm not going to be able to normal summon anyway, then I can just go ahead and fuse with it. It'll keep a level 4 body on the board, which might be useful for either Maxx or a Link play a little bit later in the turn. So gonna fire off the Kitkallos effect, Specialist Merrli that we added. We're gonna be milling 8 and feeling pretty great right here as we do so. Let's see what ends up getting sent off the top of our deck. Even if we don't hit anything, we can still make a sprint to send a Merrli here, but we do hit Scheiren as well as Agido and Scream, and maybe even some other effects? No, just those 3, but I mean only those 3, oh no. So we're going to add the Cryme. We already have the Sulliek in hand, otherwise I would have added that. Milling a Keldo is not too bad. And then we get to use the Scheiren effect. Oh, we had a Snow as well there. And then we get to use the Scheiren effect to fuse for Rulkallos. Here we do get confirmation that our opponent is going to be on an Emancipator package. So here they do get to use their own Miller. That's totally fine with me. Like, if it's not the mirror match, I don't really care if they're, you know, using Millers themselves, as long as it's not the mirror, really. However, this Tackle Crusader flipping down this Rulkallos is going to be a lot more annoying. So we're going to have to come up with some more disruption to make sure our inboard is still looking solid. We get a Kelbek here, so I'm going to go ahead and keep on milling. This was a bit of a misplay on my part, firing off this Reinoheart. I don't think I should have done that because I already normal summoned Reinoheart. And I don't think making like a rank 4 here or anything is worth it. We do get to search off the Sulliek, but like, you know, the Sulliek was, I think, debatably a lot better than having to have this in hand. So, yeah, for some reason, I just thought I hadn't activated Reinoheart effects yet, so that's the only reason I really fired it off. As mentioned earlier, we do get to go into Sprint to send off the Merrli. I'm actually going to fuse the Merrli with the Beast King of the Swamp in my hand to summon Grapha. I may not have the Rulkallos, but at least this way I can use the Grapha in order to act as a sort of Omni-Negate. And to be fair, the extra Reinoheart did actually kind of matter here, because now we have this Tearlaments Cryme set, and it's actually live. So, debatably might have even been right to summon that Reinoheart anyway. Just trying to make the best of having summoned it, I guess, in this situation. So, opponent's going to start with 1-for-1, pitching the Sunflower. I'm going to right off the bat activate Grapha's effect, because I do not want my opponent to summon a Tearlaments Cricket. Also, at this point in time, looking at my opponent's mills, I don't necessarily, have... Oh, no, there is the Analyzer in here, never mind. I was going to say I don't necessarily have confirmation that they're on Adamantipator, but even without the Analyzer, I think the Quackmere Supplier and the Guardian are kind of giveaways. You might be thinking, oh, well, they have Gigantes and the Tackle Crusader, but those could debatably actually see play in just regular, Inferior Self-Naturia builds. But we do have confirmation now that they are specifically on Adamantipator. As my opponent is continuing to activate these effects that minus themselves, that require a discard in order to resolve, I'm going to go ahead and keep negating those, just to put my opponent on as few resources as possible. They're going to eventually get to summon their Mole Cricket. I'm actually going to use the Snow in response to target the Mole Cricket. This was a bit hasty. I really should have just waited on the Snow. I was eager to proc my Havnis, but to be fair, if I just waited for the Mole Cricket effect to activate, I could have flipped down one of the things it summons and been in a lot better of a space. So they're actually going to summon 2 Naturia Camellias. That Havnis did end up building me a Scheiren. So I do get to make a Kaliedo, I believe, here. Yes, and I'm going to use one of my Reinohearts in the graveyard, because the one on the field is going to get banished whenever it leaves the field. So, alright, Kaliedo-Heart is going to hit the board. Camellia is going to send a Sacred Tree. Mole Cricket and Camellia's effects are resolving. So here I get to not only use the Kaliedo-Heart to put back one of their Camellias, but I'm also going to use Mudora to not only put back the Mole Cricket, but a couple of their Naturia monsters. Now, Camellia specials any level of a Naturia monster and doesn't target. So, even though I did put back the Mole Cricket, the Sunflower, and the... what was the last one I put back? The other Camellia, my opponent is still going to have the Bamboo Shoot in the graveyard. But I'm actually completely fine with this being the one that comes back, because I know my opponent's not really going to have plays. There's not really a level 9 Synchro that takes 1 non-tuner. If they're playing a level 9 Synchro, it's probably either Trishula or maybe the Christian one, which both take 2 or more non-tuners. So I'm not concerned about them syncing. Yeah, they can link, but I mainly just didn't want to use both of my shufflers here. I wanted to see if I could get the other one to use in response to a blessing or something like that. So Chainlink's going to resolve here. Mudora's putting back their Naturia monsters. Kaleido's putting back one of their Camellias. This Camellia will resolve, getting back again the Bamboo Shoot. That doesn't do anything because it wasn't tribute summoned. Also, with this current game state, I don't care. Even if I couldn't play spell and trap cards, that's totally fine. Opponent is going to link the 2 of them off into Asa the Earth Charmer Immovable. Asa's going to target my Kelbek. I'm going to chain the Keldo in response. That'll go ahead and get rid of my Kelbek as well as my opponent's Naturia monsters. This will force them to chain the Blessing here. So they do still get to use the Blessing to bring something back, but I do still get to deny a body by using Keldo in response to the Asa here. Yeah, opponent's just moving to battle phase after that, crashing the Asa into my Grapha to get an Earth Search. I am out of disruption, but thankfully my opponent is out of things to do, just kind of in general here. So they're going to set a card in phase. I'm just going to fire off the Snow again just to kind of do it, that way I'm playing not only around this back row a little bit, but also around the Maxx in hand. Playing around it in the sense that, then my opponent isn't using it on my turn, but doesn't really seem like it's going to matter too much anyway. Opponent's going to try to activate the Sacred Tree. I'm just going to use Rulkallos to negate it and destroy it. Even if it gets the search effect off, that doesn't matter. I'll know their last card is Maxx plus whatever Naturia card they grab, so I can just switch everything to attack mode and just swing on in for lethal there. So that's going to go ahead and do it for our first duel. Let's go and take a look at the next game here. Okay, so for this game, we're going to find ourselves up against Dragon Link. It's a pretty standard looking Dragon Link build. The only real standout tech that I noticed off the top of my head when I first glanced at it was a Destrudo, which isn't completely irregular, just not super usual in the 40 card builds in particular. Gonna be going second this time. We have Havnis for disruption as well as a Super Poly to use as a potential board break. So definitely looking pretty good here. Super Poly in particular is really good against Dragon Link because they often end on Borland and Borload Savage Dragon. So you can just go ahead and use a Super Poly and fuse those two for Garura or Mud Dragon, and like you're just good to go right off the bat. So opponent's going to activate the Striker Dragon. I'm going to chain the Havnis in my hand. Denied milling anything significant though. So it looks like from here on out, my opponent's going to get to have pretty much the ability to fully combo. But the line they're doing is already very irregular. Summoning the Rocket Synchron and then utilizing that in order to go into the Striker before using Striker to add back the Synchron, playing the Boot Sector, summoning the two, and then linking them off into the Romulus. So now we're going for the Ravine. Little bit... I'm not really super sure what the opponent's going to use Ravine here for, though, because they've already used the Boot Sector launch. Alright, so we're summoning Magnamhut and then triggering it for the Lubellion. That makes sense here, right? We do need to put a level 4 lower dragon on the field to kind of continue plays. And we're not able to. We're just going to activate the Ravine, set a card, and then pass. So, just to kind of critique my opponent a little bit here, I get that they probably didn't have access to another level 4 lower dragon monster, but in that case, setting up the Ravine here did absolutely nothing for them. Not only just, you know, placing it on the field without activating it, which leaves it vulnerable to destruction, as well as gets rid of their Boot Sector launch, which they could have potentially used next turn. But this Romulus on the field, like, that's not doing anything either. The search for the Ravine in general just did nothing. A much better link to go into would have been the Heraldic Seal of the Heavens. If your hand is, like, not that great with Dragon Link, then going into that will at least give you some form of disruption, not only by bouncing a monster, but you can also use the seal to summon a Druiswarm from deck to act as even more disruption there. So this, I will say this much, the Super Poly here is actually not good against this board because I can't really summon anything. Gonna start by activating Rhoda. Opponent immediately takes the bait and activates the Ash Blossom. Again, just to kind of critique my opponent a bit, I feel like if you know you're playing against Tearlaments, you should know you have much better Ash targets than just reinforcement of the army. I will actually normal summon the Merrli here before summoning Scheiren just to see if I get any mills off of it. Plus, even if I weren't to get anything here, I could at the very least link these two into Sprint, send a Merrli, and then have a fusion. But I hit a Reinoheart as well as a Scream, so I'm going to activate both those effects. Magnamhut Search is also going to activate here, and opponent has a call by for the Reinoheart since their Bystial monster in hand isn't able to banish it. So that is something we know they have the... Is it a Druiswarm I think they added, right, during their end phase? We know they have that Bystial monster, yes, Druiswarm in their hand, so we do have to be mindful and play around that. Gonna go ahead and activate my Scheiren's effect, discarding this Keldo, milling my top 3, not hitting anything, so I'm gonna have to use my Super Poly here on my own monsters, but that's actually totally fine. Like I mentioned earlier with Polymerization, fusing your own tiers by an effect not only gets you a fusion monster with the fusion spell, but then you get to proc your fusers as well. So I get to proc Kitkallos and Havnis and Scheiren here. Yes, my opponent can use Druiswarm to stop one of the fusers, but I get to use Keldo to stop the Druiswarm from hitting the board, and then from there I still get another fuser and a lot of plays, especially because we still have the Merrli on the field as well to potentially link away and then make a sprint for another fusion. I'm actually going to add Scream off the Kitkallos here because there's not really a whole lot else I really need to add. I'm going to go ahead and fuse the Scheiren with the Beast King in order to drop down Rulkallos. This was actually a little bit of a misplay. I think I should have just summoned Fusion Graphic here because I can still just pretty easily summon Rulkallos later with the Kitkallos. It might seem weird to link Kitkallos and not use her to mill 5, but here I get to use the Sprite Elf that I made to summon Diviner to send Agido. Agido is going to get to mill 5. You want to, if you're going to send a miller off of the Diviner, by the way, send Agido, not Kelbek. Because you have one Agido and 2 Kelbek, it's much more likely for your one Agido to mill one of your 2 Kelbek than your one Kelbek to mill your 1 Agido. So the Agido ended up milling us a couple of names. It did also mill my opponent in Absol Router Dragon to get a search for a rocket monster, but I'm not really concerned about that at all, honestly. Alright, Merrli is going to activate, and yeah, this is why I said I should have used for Fusion Grapha earlier. Not that it's bad to make Kaliedo-Heart here, but I think I would have rather ended on Fusion Grapha plus Rulkallos rather than Kaliedo-Heart plus Rulkallos. I don't know, it's debatable. They're both fine, honestly. Not quite finding lethal here, though. I also misplayed by not summoning Fairy Tail Snow here and sinking for Baron. I don't have any clue why I didn't do that, so... Unless my Snow's not in the graveyard anymore? Did he get banished? Or was that a different game that I had Fairy Tail Snow? Am I just crazy? I mean, I am, but... Well, anyway. Opponent does have access to a couple of Bystial monsters, so we do have to be mindful of that. That's why I'm waiting on this Sprite Elf until, you know, there's a chance for me to activate one of them. Opponent's going to use Druiswarm on... What was that? The... Tearlaments Scheiren. I'm going to go ahead and fire off the Rulkallos effect in response. Opponent can Maxx C, that's completely fine, I don't care at all about that. Mainly just don't want that Druiswarm to hit the board and act as removal / disruption, so... Alright, we're linking into Dark, the Dark Charmer Galoomy. It's going to activate and try to bring back my Scheiren. That's actually completely fine, I don't really care about that. Opponent's then going to try to proactively use Baldrake against Merrli. I'm of course going to respond by using Sprite Elf to bring back that Merrli, not only preventing the Baldrake summon, but also milling 3. Definitely worth giving my opponent a draw here. That's, again, 100% fine with me. Opponent gets to summon, but I also get to mill 3. Don't end up hitting anything relevant, though, and this Magnamhut isn't really, like, the most relevant thing either. I did mill the Beast King, though, and while Kaliedo-Heart's in the field, that does allow me to put this Dark the Dark Charmer back into the deck here. I want to put that back just in case my opponent's trying to climb into, like, an access code or something. Alright, Destrudo is coming out and then linking off into a Striker Dragon. Striker Dragon F is popping the Magnamhut to bring back the Rocket Recharger here. And then my opponent concedes because I just don't think they have too much else going on. So, yeah, we did misplay a little bit, especially not making Baron. I think not making Baron, also not making Fusion Grapha. Like, that end board could have been Sprite Elf pointing to Fusion Grapha and Baron, honestly, and then also having a Rulkallos on the board. And that would have actually been insane, having the Rulkallos with the 2 Omnis being link protected, or target protected by the link arrows of Sprite Elf. But, I mean, to be fair, we still had pretty much no issues playing through our opponent's board there. So, okay, we have a couple more games still. Okay, let's go into the next duel here. Okay, so this time we're up against Sky Striker. 53 card Sky Striker. Quite interesting there. I guess the opponent wanted to jam-pack as many going second tools as possible. It kind of shows they're playing even stuff like Dark Hole. This opening hand is great. Don't mind this Maxx C. I've actually talked about this once before, I think, but sometimes if I lose a coin flip and I'm not paying a lot of attention, and my opponent lets me go first, I won't notice. I'll just fire off Maxx C during the draw phase anyway. So, you know, I like to think of it as just giving my opponent a fair shot, right? Like, I'm already playing such a good deck. I might as well just start one card down and give them a bit more of a fighting chance, right? Right? That's just me inhaling copium, don't mind me. In any case, gonna get to go ahead and summon the Rulkallos here. And I don't think I need to tell you this hand is stupid good, even, you know, -1 card. Still having Scheiren, what was it? Reinoheart, Merrli, Scheiren, Baldrake is a phenomenal opening hand. We already have access to pretty much everything, so I get to search the Sulliek off the Kitkallos just to ensure that we're going to have that negation. We even hit a Kelbek here. I know I've said a lot in the past, like, don't activate the Miller if you don't know what you're up against, but with a hand this good, I feel like even if we are in the mirror match, right, I already have a Bystial monster in hand. You know, it's not unlikely for me to hit a Shuffler, which we did, so I'm really not concerned about the mills, even if it is the mirror match. Like, I think my hand is just that good. Again, misplayed by kind of summoning this Reinoheart here. I think that's kind of one of the things I tend to do a little bit often when playing this deck, is just summon the Reinoheart a little bit too frequently. Especially because, like I said earlier, because it gets banished when it leaves the field, you want to be actually a little bit selective about when you link or fuse it away, so... I'll Cryme the Feather Duster. The Raigeki, on the other hand, is completely fine because that's just going to trigger my Tearlament effects. So, Rulkallos could just come on back, and then Merrli can get a summon here as well. Opponent is going to get a couple of draws off Maxx C, but that's completely fine. I don't really care that much. Alright, Rulkallos is back, and with Merrli, I'm going to go ahead and fuse her with the Scheiren Yard just to make another Kitkallos and get some more advantage here. Adding a Havnis, maybe not the smartest move under Maxx C. I probably should just added Reinoheart, but he was just going to evenly and then move to battle phase, or other way around, you know what I mean. So Rulkallos, yes, I'm just waiting for a Sky Striker Ace Raise effect. As by this point, I was already, even before these two cards hit the board, pretty confident it was Sky Striker. The going second cards, well, I guess they milled a Rose as well, but even without milling the Rose, like, the going second cards are kind of an indication, especially when combined with the Upstart Goblin. Upstart Goblin is a card that really only sees play in Sky Striker, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, if the deck is above 40 cards and plays 3 Upstart, it's probably just going to be Sky Striker. There's not really any other decks that would ever want to do that. Negating the Ray means that no Link monsters are coming down here, and then, yeah, all my opponent has left is this one Widow Anchor, which obviously doesn't do anything at all. Even if my opponent had 3 spells in the graveyard to take control of it, they like can't even battle with it because they've already even lead. So, yeah, pretty clean duel against Sky Strikers there. Got one more game to take a look at. Gonna dive straight into it now. And our final opponent for this video is on Runick Dinomorphia. I don't know if I've ever actually seen that combination myself, but, you know, if it works, it works. So we're going to be taking the first turn here. Once again, opening a very good opening hand. Not maxing during my own draw phase during turn 1 this time. Using Scheiren, or the Perlerino rather, to add the Scheiren here, because we already have Reinoheart. Reinoheart F to send the Havnis, Havnis F to then fuse for Kitkallos. This is pretty standard fair stuff. Gonna summon the Kitkallos, and because I already have both Merrli and Scheiren, just gonna grab the Scream here. I could have grabbed the Sulliek actually. The Scream was just to kind of ensure that I had more mills, because I don't know, to be fair, even if the Merrli and Kitkallos, the mill 8 here, would have whiffed, I guess I still have the Scheiren pitch Keldo, right? So I think in hindsight I probably should have just added Sulliek here. I didn't need the extra 3 mills of Scream, but none of the Scream mills are terrible anyway. So once again, I am just going to go ahead and fire off my Miller here because I already have a Mudora in the graveyard. And again, my hand's already looking very great. This mill alone gets me so much advantage that even if we do end up being on the Tearlaments mirror match, I don't think that I'm going to have too much of a problem staying ahead here. End up getting the Sulliek anyway because we milled it alongside Heartbeat, get to add a Cryme and a Havnis, as well as milling even more cards. This is going to give us confirmation that we are playing in Dinomorphia, and that our opponent is on Sphere modes. And from looking at their deck, I'll just go ahead and tell you they're on a full playset of raw Sphere modes. So, going to be summoning the Fusion Grapha alongside Rulkallos here, setting the Sulliek and Cryme, and then passing. So, feel pretty good about this hand. Going to draw phase during their, or maxi during their draw phase, rather. Opponent's going to set 5 and then pass back over to me. A little bit scary, but given that we have the 2 OMNI-NEGATES in the form of Grapha and Cryme each, yeah, we're not looking too bad here. And the duel actually ended even a lot more soon than I remembered. Holy moly. But to kind of recap what happened there during the start of my turn, opponent used Flashing Fire to, I guess, just destroy my Rulkallos, and that seemed like extremely obvious bait for my Fusion Grapha, so I obviously didn't take it because I'm fine with Rulkallos getting destroyed. It just brings itself back. And then I guess my opponent just realized at that point that they couldn't resolve enough of their back rows through my effects. Because here's the thing, right? It's Dinomorphia. One of those back rows is going to be a trap card that Fusion summons. Rulkallos can negate that. Fusion Grapha can negate any one of those. And I did actually add Cryme off of a card effect, so they know that I have that. So 3 of their 4 remaining back rows are just done, and it's extremely unlikely that one face-down card is going to be enough to power through all of the advantage that I have here. So, makes sense why my opponent conceded so early. But anyway, thank you all so very much for watching these games. Now let's move to our outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There, for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack, you'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation, you do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot, as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now, so without further ado, this is Hexlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.